So hey guys, today we're going to be talking about going second in Yu-Gi-Oh! And straight up, going second is kind of terrible. And I mean, I'll focus on the main reason today. So the reason going second sucks so much is because you're limited in your options, right? Because you're the going second player. So for the going first player, what options do you have versus the going second player? So we can literally do an FTK, and there's several, just drop an FTK, right? Boom, easy FTK, right? And that's one way we could win. We could set up a pretty moderate board. Yeah, it varies, but we can have technically like Orchist, which is arguably a moderately decent mix of back row and also just monster-based interruptions, and some of these happen in the graveyard and all that. If we want something that's mostly going to happen on field, we could technically also do super heavy samurai combo, which is just going to end on stuff that's kind of on the field, and they're going to do things basically, right? Your super heavy samurai cards are going to be able to drop a bunch of probably monster negates, or not monster negates, omni negates, as your kind of endboard pieces, and that'll be it, right? And then let's see, let's bring out a couple more, like Runic, kind of deck out, I guess in theory. And then we have other strategies like, we'll say straight up stun, because that's technically a strategy. And every single one of these, they're moderately viable, I suppose, right? And then there are a bunch of different decks, like, I mean, I guess, like Draco Tail, K9, Radiant Typhoon, Sky Striker, Memento. All of these guys play a little bit different. Mitsurugi, might as well throw that one in there. Risial Malice. So a little bit similar here there, but between some of these, different in others. And then we have like very back row heavy decks. So all of those decks, they're kind of different. They don't have that much in common, except like we're talking about them going first right now. So in all of these cases, what remains consistent? You don't have to give a damn about what the going second player is doing, honestly. So if I am playing Gimmick Puppet, I'm a just straight FDK, what do I have to worry about? I guess I just have to worry about getting like hand trapped a bit, right? If I am playing Orcus, I guess maybe I'll have to worry about getting hand trapped again, or broken and then OTK'd. Those are the main things I guess I would be worried about here. With Super Heavy Samurai, just board breakers, really. I mean, hand traps probably aren't that bad. They're a select few like Droll that can shut this deck down, but aside from that, it's like not too much of a problem with how much engine you're going to be running and all that. Runic, does my opponent have like a good way to maybe deal with the Runic cards or not? That's really all you're worried about. It's selective back row removal, basically, that you have to worry about. And then with stun, it's like, did I open Solemn? Did my opponent open Duster? But then you have to take all of this in and think for a second. Okay, you could be going against any of these decks and you could be stuck in any of these situations, right? So there are different answers for every single one of these situations. So for example, for Super Heavy Samurai, maybe Lava Golem would be your answer. So you can just immediately drop these on the board and clear it. Dark Ruler no more, that could be an answer as well. Against like Orcus, not so much the answer against this. I mean, you could remove some guys, but it doesn't get you that far. I mean, it certainly helps, but it's not going to like immediately get you anywhere with like Lava Golem or Dark Ruler no more. You would need probably certain hand traps would be more beneficial, like maybe Vistrals, like a Magnuma or something. Maybe that get you more mileage. Dimension Shifter, something like that. And then for like Runic, maybe get just the simple, since Runic typically does not set their cards, maybe all you would simply need is a Cosmic Cyclone on Fountain, and then that just removes the ability to activate any of the runic cards, and then you're just chilling. And then for a stun, you just I guess you could have just went first, or you just have enough backer removal to get through all the protection and stuff, and they just can't do anything once you've put a guy on board. So yeah, that sums up that deck pretty much. But if you're going second player here, you have to consider the fact that, you know, you could be going up against reasonably any of these strategies, any type of these decks. There are technically, you would argue, maybe a few more deck types I might have missed. So in all of those cases, you would still have to deal with those decks. So basically, the going first player sets the stage, right? They choose what the game's going to be to an extent, right? Is it going to be a game where you have to break through a lot of back row, a lot of monster negates? Maybe it's like removal and not so much negates. It kind of like depends, right? Or maybe you have to eat, get through like 7 Omni negates or whatever Super Heavy Samurai does nowadays. So whatever the case, you have to deal with it, right? So the going first player, basically, to an extent, can just ignore the going second player. They don't really care that much about what the going second player does because, you know, well, what is there to do? There's only executing whatever my strategy happens to be. Now, for the going second player, you have to worry about what your opponent's strategy is, what your strategy is, because not only do you have to break the board or kind of like ruin their strategy, you have to still find a way to win as well. So you're basically working overtime here, right? And of course, with the going first cards, I can play literally whatever I want, and it's always going to be moderately fine because going first is just busted. Like you could be playing Altergeist, and that deck for some reason sets up something dumb like 4 spell trap negates, and then a few monster interactions as well. We have Snatch Steal, Return to Hand, Negate Destroy. I'm pretty sure all of this is accessible with like something like a 2-card combo with Altergeist, but of course it dies to like a single hand trap. But you know, if you were playing certain board breaker kind of strategies, notably like spell kind of board breaker, so kind of like Sky Striker, you were absolutely cooked, my guy. Like that deck, you can't negate any of their monsters. Well, that's kind of like worth mentioning, right? So Droplet doesn't work, Gargoyle no more doesn't work. Raigeki doesn't work either because they can just negate it. Like, even if you had like 3 of them, they can negate every single one of them. Like that's pretty ridiculous to an extent. So yeah, I mean, that deck kind of will cook you, I suppose, in those cases. But at the same time, if you drop like a single Ash Blossom or whatever, maybe Imperm, Dominus Impulse, deck is completely dead, and they end on 0 interruptions. So yeah, it's like a game of rock paper scissors, but your opponent, well, they have way more than rock paper and scissors, and you just have to choose beforehand. Like, am I bringing rock paper or scissors here? But my opponent can bring like, I don't know, boulder or gun. Does rock beat gun? Maybe you'd have to find a way for rock to beat gun, you know? But yeah, I mean, you're in just major disadvantage because you don't know what your opponent's doing exactly, what their board is going to be exactly. I mean, even if your opponent is on Orcus, technically, there's even the idea of Orcus hybrid build. So we could be playing, we'll just say, Orcus Centurion. And then that becomes even more complicated to break because maybe your plan before was to maybe remove the field spell, but now it's being backed up by like 2 counter trap Omni negates, so you can't even red reboot it. Like, well, not a single red reboot anyways would solve that conundrum, I suppose. And yeah, I mean, what are you going to do if your opponent has like a full Orcus board plus a full Centurion board. Absolutely nothing's what you're going to do about that. Well, okay. Going second in general, though. You're going to have to deal with essentially FTKs, getting OTK'd, unbreakable boards. You have to deal with all of that. And then for going first, I mean, if your opponent's also playing a going first deck, they're just going to be weaker going second anyway, so nothing to really worry about there. It's just whatever, right? If your opponent is on a going second deck, then they still have their work cut out for them because, like, do you have the right going second cards for this? Like, you might have a Heartbeast Feather Duster, but do you also have a red reboot for my back row or whatever? Or let's say we're playing, maybe it'll be Blackwing, right? Maybe I just have a legitimate, just like 3k guy on the field. You know, I have Blackwing Full Armor Master with Sharnga in the graveyard. Can you out this? Can you do anything about this? And technically, you probably have Chinook as well in hand. If you have this guy on the field, that's just how it goes, you know? I don't make the rules. But yeah. Can you out like this Blackwing Full Armor Master with 2 interruptions tied to it that aren't even on the field? So you just have to find a way to kind of deal with this unaffected guy, you know? Even if you had Dark Ruler no more or whatever. Best answer to this, I guess, would be like Kaiju. Do you have that also? And even if you have it in your deck, did you open it? Because the odds of opening it, not that great. And technically, there aren't really any ways to search like some of the cards you might really need. I mean, it kind of works in some cases, like with Santa Claus, you can search that with like Fiendsmith Tract, which is, I'd argue, technically a good thing. And technically, Tract can also search like Arcfiend Eccentric, which can kind of work as an MST as well, which is kind of good, I guess. But also, like, pop 1, back row, is that really going to make the difference? Removing 1 monster from my opponent's field and discarding 1 card from my hand? Yeah. That's actually way worse than a Kaiju, actually, because, or just regular MST, because you have to, well, it depends on like the exact hand you open, but you have to, for the most part, like discard some card in your hand and then attempt to trade for like probably 1 interruption with either the Santa Claus or the Eccentric. Either way, absolutely cooked, right? Now, in terms of like going first cards versus going second cards, I mean, like, this card, let's say Girsu, how many interruptions does Girsu actually go into? Let's just real quick do a count. So you grab Omni Negate, Snatch Steal, and then you have ability to send your opponent's cards to the graveyard with Dingirsu, and then you technically have the ability to then go into IP, I'm pretty sure. So IP effect goes into SP, so that's Spanish 1, Spanish 2, so that's 5 interrupts, and then technically there's actually a graveyard effect as well on the Link 4, which will trigger because of IP sending it to the graveyard, putting us at 6 interruptions off of just normal summoning like Dingirsu, essentially. And then hand traps, which, you know, your opponent has 4 cards in hand, because I'm pretty sure this is a 1-card combo off of just Girsu. And if not through Girsu, I mean, there are cards that will make it happen, because you can go into the Nightmare cards, which then allow you to kind of pivot into the Orcus cards. So yeah, that's very doable with 1 or 2 cards. So yeah, that's feeling kind of doomed, in my opinion. Where in those cases, it's just like, you know, do you have the specific hand trap? Because also worth mentioning, I guess, you know, not every single hand trap is effective into every single kind of combo, right? So for example, Ash Blossom Joy Spring, absolutely terrible and horrendous versus Super Heavy Samurai. Droll, insane against Super Heavy Samurai, right? Super good. And then against Orcus, Droll does absolutely nothing. Ash Blossom, it's actually okay, you know, you maybe get some mileage out of Ash. Against Super Heavy Samurai, absolutely not happening. Ain't no way. There is no world where Ash will get you mileage, I don't think, really, right? I mean, unless they opened like insanely terrible. If we're talking like pure Orcus, I mean, you don't have that many kind of good starters. Like you have normal Swing Girsu that gets Ash. It doesn't really go into much. Does it go into anything actually? I think that at least allows you to maybe get one Omni Negate. Yeah, I guess. So that's like one interruption, and that's like maybe in theory your best starter. Aside from that, we have like if we start Harp, normal Summon Harp, go into Link 1, you Ash the Harp. Yeah, I don't think you can really do anything there. Even worse, if it were actually somehow a Orcus Nightmare on field, like I guess if you have the Link 1, you can then go into a Nightmare because you add World Crown. So you can go into like Nightmare Phoenix and then into Mermaid to send or special summon Orcus Nightmare, whatever that card does. So yeah, your work's cut out for you, right? You have absolutely no advantages, and you're just full of only disadvantages, really. And if we look at just archetype design as well, like, you know, is there even a single archetype with a decent board breaking kind of ability in any way, shape, or form? They're like maybe 3 with moderate effects that are kind of good. So I think we have specifically it's Shtira, because your guys are kind of big, and then Fenrir inherently just has some like removal effects, like down here, and it's a big guy, so you can remove guys by battle as well. Unicorn as well, big guy. Ogre, big guy as well. You can just run over some things by battle. And then we have Horus, which you have kind of big guys. But also like you die to like one interruption like Hella. So activate Imp City, Ash Blossom Joy Spring on Imp City, activate King Sark. I will now pop the King Sarcophagus. And that's that, right? Also, like, doesn't have to be Ash, but just negate Imp City at all, right? And then you have no access to King Sark, and then this guy's just dead in the graveyard, technically, right? And was there anything else that actually had any board breaking ability at all? I mean, I guess there's like Ryzeal with X. Yeah. You can send like Mirror Logic Aggregator or something. And you can even chain block the aggregator with the X Ryzeal effect to kind of make sure it resolves somewhat, sorta. Depends. But for the most part, it will probably resolve. And then it'll negate a card. You may or may not get the search. And also, you still have your normal summon and stuff, so you're just doing pretty well if you have X, I guess. But at the same time, with X specifically, like this card, like going first and then having to deal with this, it's inversely kind of just so frustrating because what can you do about X? Absolutely nothing. But then at the same time, like, can I really complain? I just went first and I still have like 7 more interruptions despite like that mirror logic singular negate. So maybe I don't care that much actually. Kind of depends a little bit, I suppose. But yeah, main thing, main takeaway for this video, I guess, is that going first, you can do literally anything you want. You could just start looping a card or something, and then setting up an FTK. And if your opponent doesn't have hand traps, then they'll just lose. There's no like board breaking through it. Their engine's completely worthless. Their board breakers also potentially worthless, assuming they don't run any hand traps. Completely cooked, right? And then, of course, with hand traps, if you run a lot of hand traps and then your opponent just flips skill drain on you, you don't have the board breakers to like deal with this or the spell trap removal because you're playing hand traps. So yeah, it's just cooked for the going second play. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.